Welcome back, everybody. Eric here, Iraq Veteran 8888. All right, hope everybody's having a great day. We got a little bit more 2A news for you. I will admit I've been a little bit behind the curve on doing these types of videos. I do apologize for that. We have many more of these on the way, and I'm going to try my best to keep my fingers on the pulse of what's going on. Information is always changing so quickly, and things are happening at such a fast pace in the anti-gun world because they have unlimited money, it seems, and resources that it can be hard to keep up with it all the time. So I'm doing the best I can with it. I wanted to mention a little bit about this Kyle Rittenhouse civil lawsuit. We're going to get into this a little bit, and I want to kind of put my 2 cents in on a couple of things related to it. Before we get started, I would like to thank our friends at Pyramid Air for supporting today's video. If you are looking for anything in the airgun world, they are absolutely your go-to source. They've got tanks and different bottles and things, compressors, projectiles, air guns, air bows, all different types of accessories, all your coupling gadgets and hoses and every little bit of accoutrements you might possibly need. Fast shipping, great prices, definitely one of the leaders in the industry. If you're looking for any type of air rifle, check them out. Pyramid Air, big friends of the channel, and tell them we sent you. Also, make sure that there's a great little text deal going on right now. You can get yourself a discount if you text the code down to the number below there on Pyramid Air. That'll tell them that we sent you, and you get you a nice little discount code for supporting them. So big thanks to them, and we're going to get right into this. So I'm definitely not trying to throw stones at Kyle Rittenhouse. Certainly not. I will admit that when I was looking around for different articles related to what is going on with Kyle right now, I had a hard time finding anything that was not blatantly biased. You know, the language in all of the news reports was so defamatory and accusatory, and I'm thinking, man, could anybody just write a news article about Kyle Rittenhouse that just states the facts and doesn't try to get into the weeds on, you know, political stuff or wokeism or anything? It's all left-leaning, left-biased media outlets that are reporting on this in an effort to try to make Kyle look bad. I mean, look, what I'm getting at here, I'm not trying to make Kyle Rittenhouse look bad or anything like that. But I want to mention a little bit from this article. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's kind of long, but I just want to kind of give you an idea what we're looking at. Attorneys allege Kyle Rittenhouse is evading civil lawsuit over Wisconsin shooting. All right, and this is just from a few days ago. Attorneys for Gage Grosskreutz, he filed a request on Wednesday, the deadline that the U.S. District Attorney Ann Adelman had given them to serve the lawsuit on Rittenhouse and the other defendants. They added that Rittenhouse as a defendant last week in the lawsuit that also targets the city of Kenosha and local officials. The lawsuit, originally filed in October 2021, accuses Rittenhouse and other defendants, including a host of law enforcement agencies, of causing the injuries that he suffered that night, is seeking an unspecified amount of damages. The lawsuit is similar to the one filed by the father of Anthony Huber, one of the 2 men Rittenhouse shot and killed that night. Rittenhouse was charged with homicide, attempted homicide, and reckless endangering for killing Huber and Joseph Rosenbaum and wounding. Funny name guy. All right. Sorry, I'm not going to try to butcher the fellow's name over and over again. And basically they're trying to say that, you know, they're unaware of Mr. Rittenhouse's whereabouts and saying he's trying to invade him. I mean, look, all of that aside, I just wanted to kind of use this as a vehicle to kind of mention a few things. You know, Rittenhouse basically, you know, the trial happened. He got out of this situation. He was found not guilty or whatever of everything they were accusing him of doing. So I made a tweet the other day, and when I read this article, it really made me think about the tweet that I had made the other day, where basically, you know, the way that justice has turned in this country is all like a mob coming to get you, and it really the accusation is actually the crime, right? You might actually be absolved of the crime in court. You know, you have your day in court, you present all the evidence, and then the jury finds you not guilty. Hooray, everything's all good to go, right? Wrong. You can still be sued in civil court, and a lot of these woke companies that have piles of money and they've got basically endless resources, okay? And what winds up happening is they pump all kinds of money into these civil lawsuits as well in an effort to try to not only smear Kyle Rittenhouse, who's already been found not guilty of committing any sort of a crime, but also to keep the public interest into it and to keep the media engaged and to allow them to keep slinging mud at Kyle Rittenhouse. And the whole point, as I said, is that the accusation is actually the punishment. Right? You might be found not guilty of committing a crime, but it doesn't mean that society is not going to put a scarlet letter on your back. Like the same thing they did with the other shooter, with Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman, right? Zimmerman, sometimes he can't even go out in public without people threatening him. He end up having to move somewhere, change his name or whatever. No telling what the guy had to do just to try to keep society off his back. Now what happened was terrible. Okay, it sucks, but it doesn't change the fact that, look, he was judged by a jury of his peers and found to be not guilty. I mean, he went through the process. So these civil lawsuits, yeah, you might beat the rap, but you're not going to beat society's scarlet letter that they're going to put on you. And I'm certainly in this video not telling people not to carry a gun and protect themselves and everything like that. But what I am sort of just I want to keep in people's mind here is that, if you do draw a pistol or rifle or whatever, weapon you have and you use it, you better be dang sure that there is a really good freaking reason that you can articulate extremely well, right? You got to be able to say, hey, this is how I was feeling at the time. I thought my life was in danger, yada, yada. This is what happened. I thought I was going to die, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the case may be, you got to be able to paint a picture that is crystal clear so that there could be absolutely zero question into, your actions and whether or not they were, justified or not. And that's a scary thing that society always wants to assume that someone that just happens to be a gun owner or they're carrying a gun or maybe they're just trying to do the right thing and do their civic duty and be armed to be able to protect themselves and their communities, their family, what have you, when they're out in public. And you might have the best laid plans and the absolute best intentions of anybody in the world, but you're still going to have to, explain for yourself, especially if you're in some high profile situation like what Rittenhouse was in. I think Kyle Rittenhouse's situation, if we look at the amount of times that guns have been used to protect people rather than to commit crimes, there's a lot of situations where someone protects himself with a firearm every single day, but the news, of course, they're not going to report those things. In fact, it was the CDC themselves that worked with anti-gun groups to suppress defensive gun shooting statistics on their website. So, that should be illegal, right, for an advocacy group to contact a major government organization and pressure them to hide data that is not helpful to their cause. In the case of anti-gunners, the shooting data is not helpful to their cause, right? It actually works against their cause. So imagine having the kind of pull politically that you can call up the CDC and say, yeah, we're just going to need you to hide that information from the public. That's what happened, right? So the media is not on our side. The anti-gunners have lots of pull, tons of money, so they're going to pump money into every single little situation they possibly can to try to paint gun owners with a bad light in any way they can. So we already have this biased situation against us, right? And when we look at, being out in everyday life and just trying to do the right thing, that ain't exactly a good enough excuse anymore. They're still going to try to throw the book at you, depending where it is and who it involves. And you look at what happened in Kenosha, the riots and everything. The media was already, had their attention all over that situation. And then Kyle Rittenhouse does something like what he did. It was just the perfect cataclysm for the media to use it as their situation to show, see, gun owners are mean people. They go around shooting people and things like that, which, of course, luckily the jury saw right through it. The court saw right through it. And, justice was served, right, in many different ways. The point is, though, you're never going to escape that civil lawsuit. So that's just something to think in the back of your mind. You're going to have to beat the rap, but you're also going to probably get sued in civil court. And I wanted to use this situation with Kyle Rittenhouse to kind of back up and reiterate that, yes, Kyle was in the right with what he did, right? And yes, Kyle had his day in court, and yes, he came out on top, and everything's good to go. But then you're still going to get sued by these people and have to fight him in civil court. And who knows? For some odd reason, depending on the way it shakes down, this guy might actually get some type of a civil court decision against Kyle, and Kyle wind up having to pay, I mean, like they said, an undisclosed amount of money. He may have to pay him a ton of money or something. So see, again, it's like you're always having to get punished by paying money out or paying lawyers or fighting it, and I'm not dare going to sit here and say that Kyle didn't do the right thing. Of course, if your life's in danger, you got to do what you got to do. I'm not talking about the right or wrong of the situation. He was obviously in the right because he's alive. And at the end of the day, we want to go home alive. And that's what he wanted to do. But what I'm saying is that, if you can avoid a gunfight, it's probably best to avoid a gunfight. I think I try to generally kind of err on that side that, if you can remove yourself from the situation or if you can de-escalate the situation, with your verbal judo, that's probably a good idea. If you can avoid it, it's probably best to avoid it. And, I know a lot of people probably keep that in the back of their mind, but I would, looking at the situation with Kyle should definitely change a lot of people's minds on how they approach a potential shooting. I mean, if it's just the blink of an eye and one moment you're in danger and you have no choice but to just have a conditioned response and react and use a firearm to protect yourself in that moment, well, then you have to do what you have to do. I'm not suggesting stop and scratch your head with your gun and go, well, would a lawyer do this? I mean, don't get that involved, but just know that, you're going to have to articulate every single thing that occurred in detail over and over and over and over again because they're going to try to catch you in some lie, So, just remember that our actions are going to echo in a lot of different ways, and Kyle's not out of the woods. Now, I feel pretty confident that this is going to work out well for him. I don't think he's a bad kid. I think he was just trying to do the right thing. And, did he make a few maybe little tactical decisions mistakes along the way? Well, yeah. I mean, can we always look back on a situation and say that something could have been done better? Well, obviously, yeah. If he was ever involved in a situation like that again, I guarantee he's going to be prepared in a slightly different way or have a slightly different outlook going into it, right? I mean, life gives us experience that we then apply to our future endeavors. So I'm not going to say that the guy wouldn't be capable of making a sound decision in life or taking care of himself and just doing the right thing, I'm certainly not trying to say anything disparaging about Kyle Rittenhouse. But I just thought it was be interesting to draw a little attention to this matter from my perspective instead of the far leftist anti-gun perspective that most of the newspapers seem to want to really spin a story like this. I wanted to kind of mention just some caveats and sort of, considerations that I would keep in the back of your mind when you see something like this going on. And I think we should support Kyle, and try to back him up at every turn that we can, because he's going through a rough spot. I mean, that's not a good position for somebody to have to be in, to have to beat charges like that and then having get sued in civil court and all this mess. So, just bear in mind it can happen to anybody, okay? Don't think that this happened to Kyle Rittenhouse just because it was some famous situation or something. I mean, yeah, in part reason probably, but something like this to this severity can happen to anybody. And just know that if you're going to pull that pistol and use it, you better have a dang good reason and you better be able to articulate it. So just want to mention that. I thought it was an interesting article. I'll link this one down below if you want to read further. It's mostly just some speculation and kind of legal mumbo jumbo, but I wanted to share it. Just to get some information out on it. But thank you so much for watching. Many more videos on the way. We'll see you soon.